Facebook Live. I'm Tom Laskowski with Midwest Native Skills, and every other Thursday we're back here doing a Facebook Live on a variety of topics. Today we're going to have an open discussion. It's whatever you want to talk about, whatever questions you might have related to anything survival, outdoors, gear, anything you have in mind. I'd like to have this as a two-way discussion, so please type in. I have a few things to start out with, and maybe we can get it going. Anything from gardening to winter survival to what we're going to be doing this summer. Just for anyone new joining us, real briefly, we're an outdoor wilderness survival school located in Northeast Ohio, just south of Cleveland. We teach non-military survival, and I like to stress that because, again, we love our military, but they have a tendency to teach with equipment. What we teach here at the school is how to survive more like the Native Americans did, without equipment. Just what nature provides and what you can store in your head. We like to say the more you store in your head, the less you carry on your back. That's one reason I got into survival. I don't like carrying a lot of gear. One question I get is, what kind of backpack do you like? I don't like any of them. The less I can carry on my back, the better I like it. If I can carry something on my hip, a small little pouch as a survival kit, or maybe over my shoulder, I like that much better than carrying a backpack. I like to use what nature provides. If it's out there already, we might as well use it and not carry it in with us. So that's my opinion on backpacks and things. If anyone's out there, type in. I'd like to know who's out there. Type in who you are and where you're from. And we can go from there. I have a few notes here. And we did get a few questions that when we first posted this up on our Facebook account, a few people did call in, and because I was trying to solicit some questions in case no one joined in right at the beginning. So one of the questions we got in, what it means to learn survival at Midwest Native Skills. Good question. We like to do hands-on survival. We do have some naturally instruction to give some people the basics, but we like to first teach people with as much in their favor to learn the skill as we can. We kind of call that stacking the deck in your favor. I like to use the bow drill as an example. Most of you know the bow drill is the classic way of making fire by rubbing two sticks together. Well, we first start out people with some good pieces of wood. They're straight pieces of wood, and we teach them the skill with flat boards, and we go from there. Once they get 4, 5, 6 fires with some good pieces of wood that are nice and straight and dry and all that, then we let them go into the woods and replace one piece at a time with something from the woods. Get a couple fires with that, then replace another piece of their set with something from the woods. Until finally they're using their entire set is from pieces they've collected from the woods and replaced their initial set with. Now they're ready to walk into the woods and build their set from everything in the woods. Because at the very beginning, if you would take a person that's not familiar with the bow drill, walk them in the woods, and even with the best instruction, they're not going to be successful getting a fire because, first of all, they have to learn the technique, they have to learn how to use the equipment, and then they're overcoming wood that isn't quite straight, isn't quite the best. So that's a little too much to overcome for anyone. So that's our philosophy. We do the same thing for trapping and nighttime navigation with and without a compass, water purification, shelters, all that. You have so much, Sharon?
We've got, well, I don't have any questions for you yet, but Wendy, Teresa, Sam, Patty, and Valerie have joined us.
Well, thank you. I feel better now. I don't feel like I'm talking to the ether.
Terry's in West Virginia, Sam's in Marysville, Ohio, Patty's in Ohio, and Valerie's in Warren, Ohio.
Welcome, Sam, Patty, Terry. Thanks for joining me again, Terry. I know I do have to talk to Terry because we've been talking about getting a class going in West Virginia just for the people in that area. So I think now's the time to pick some dates. So I'm going to have to be getting together with Terry in the next week or so, and we'll pick some dates and see if we can get a class going in West Virginia. Probably early summer, I'm thinking, might be about the best time for that. So, Sam's a new name. That doesn't ring a bell. I'm not sure if Sam snuck into one of our classes and my memory just failing, or he just joined us. But anyways, welcome, Sam.
And Chloe has joined us from Parma.
Oh, hi, Chloe. I grew up in Parma, right by Snow State on Ingleside Drive. In fact, some of my first experiences was there was a woods right, by South Park there. The whole backyard was between Ingleside Drive and Snow Road, and that's where I grew up. And I just remember running around in the woods. Nowadays, from what people tell me, that it's hard to get kids to get outside, but for me, we stayed outside until the streetlights came on. So we were always in the backwoods making forts and doing all kind of stuff. So that kind of got me started into the wilderness stuff.
So Sam took the medicinal plant classes with his wife and sons.
Okay.
And Valerie would love to get a group together to have you come to their farm.
Where does Valerie live?
Warren, Ohio.
Warren. That's real doable, Valerie. I do quite a few classes like that come into different locations. We do have 3 plant classes during the year, and do that on purpose because the plants change. Spring, summer, and fall class. In general, the spring plants are really for edibles. All young plants, you can typically just pick them out of the ground, knock some of the dirt off, and eat the plants. Now, you will get some medicinals in the spring, without a doubt. But in general, you can think of spring as edible plants. Summer, you have everything maturing. You're going to get a mixture of edibles and medicinals. And when you come closer to the fall, you're thinking more drying, and you're going to be getting, you still get edibles, but when we come into the fall, you're going to have to boil or cook a lot of the greens you have because they'll be stringy. They're still edible, but if you don't boil them, it'll taste like you're eating an old piece of celery, real stringy, and it won't be the most palatable, but you're still going to get the nutrition out of it. So that's it. But if you did want to get a group together, just give us a call. We can come out there, and in fact, we can schedule a class. So maybe you might want to get some of your neighbors or family together, schedule a class down there, and it would just be like a normal class, and we can do everything from show them the plants available to making some projects to touring your property and pointing out where everything is.
Valerie would like to know how many people would you need for a group?
A group like that, we do give private classes, but if it's going to be a normal class, 8 minimum, 10 would be nice, but in that range. And then we can do a normal class that way. And I can take up to about 20 people for a class. I don't like to have the classes too big. For the plant classes, I'll do 20. For the survival classes, and we do the same format for survival classes, I'll cap the survival classes at 15. Any more than that, the people, some of the people may get lost in the material, not physically lost. And my feeling is, if you take a class, you should leave the class knowing the material good enough so you can go home and teach it to others, because that's why you're taking the class. So if you get too big of a group, it's too easy to not pick up the material. And again, with classes, we have also teaching assistants coming in, and if it's closer to the 15 size, we'll have other instructors coming in too. So the student to teacher ratio we try to keep high. And like I said, from a business point of view, my past students are my best marketing. So I like to have the best marketing out there. So having my students know their stuff is the smart business from that point of view for me. So somebody else wrote in a pretty good question. What does it mean to learn survival? And I mentioned, how we teach the classes by, start out easy like our first classes, our 101 class. I tell people, think of it as a camping trip for either a weekend or a week where you're learning things. We cook for you. It's a cushy class, to be honest with you. It's a lot of fun. Now, people say, well, this is supposed to be survival. Aren't we supposed to be, half-starved and roughing it? No, not the first class. And anyway, survival shouldn't be a hardship whatsoever. If you know what you're doing, you should be comfortable, warm, well-fed, and all that. If you want a little more rigorous experience, once you take Survival 101, know how to do the fire, shelter, water, food, all that, then you go to 201. That's when you build your own shelter and live in it for the week. You get to sleep in your tent the first night, but then we take that away. You get to use your mess kit for the first 2 days, but we take that away because you've made your own mess kit out of what nature provides. You get to use your knife for a couple days, but then we take that away because you've made your own knife. So it's a little more rigorous experience. Our third class is a nomadic trip where we go someplace in the country, the Smoky Mountains, sometimes the Adirondacks, and we go from point A to point B to point C. It's usually we'll hike 8 to 10 miles a day. We don't want to have the trip as a hiking trip. We'd rather have it looking at the land, survival, what are the resources here, how can we use the resources. So we do some hiking to change the landscape, to change where we're at, but it's more focused on setting up camps, setting up base camps and things like that. And our fourth class is a knife and blanket only. We'll go to an area, you're out there with a knife and a blanket, and that's how you're living for the week. And you're not hungry, you're not thirsty, you're not cold, because remember, you've taken the other three classes, or at least Survival 101 and 201. And you can skip 301, that's kind of an optional class, and go right to 401. You know how to do everything. You've done it, and so your skills are good enough where you have your knife and a blanket, and it's no big deal. So that's what we do. We're using what nature provides. Now, you are using resources out there, but you're using them smartly. One example, and this isn't to do strictly with survival, but in our bow making class, if we were going to go and harvest a bow stave, you see a grove of trees, you wouldn't just look and say, well, gee, I'm going to take 3 or 4 of these perfectly straight ones, and when I get back to where we're making the bow, I'll pick the one I want. That's not the way we do it. You'd look at the bow staves, or the trees, and you'd look at one in an area where they're crowded and say, you know what, I can get my bow stave out of that area, but I can also help those trees by thinning out that area. And so you'd go to that area, help the trees out by getting 3 or 4 all fighting for the same space, thin out that area, take one bow stave that you need, and take it back and make your bow out of it. So you're kind of a caretaker of nature in a way. Or if you see a tree down on another tree, well, this poor tree that's the underling is having a tough time trying to grow up. So we would suggest you would take this bigger tree on top and let both trees grow. So you're kind of, like I said, a caretaker of nature. So that's kind of our philosophy. We're not the tree huggers. We're not saying leave no footprints. Don't touch anything because you can't survive like that. But you're using what you need wisely, and you're trying to, when we're collecting, for example, in the plant classes, I use the rule of thirds. I take a third for myself, I leave a third for the birds, and then I leave a third to reseed. And if it's in the fall, I'll even grab some of those seeds and I'll kind of throw them out. So kind of like a Johnny Appleseed. So that's our philosophy. We're kind of working with nature, but we are taking things we need to survive.
So Robbie has joined us.
Hi, Rob.
And Chloe is very interested in these types of classes and wants to know if you'll be running them in 2021.
I will be. The classes I'm running in 2021, I have some of the survival classes up. In May, we have our weekend class up already. We have one in May and one in July. It's a Friday night, so you don't have to take Friday off from work. It's a Saturday and Sunday. And then we have our week-long classes. The first one is, let's say, June 13th to the 19th. And then we have another one in early August. And the next question people have is, gee, what's the difference between a weekend class, a Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, and a full week where it's a Sunday night through a Saturday? Well, besides the obvious, you get 4 extra days to learn survival. The weekend classes, we're going over still the basics of shelter, water, fire, and food, but we don't have very much time to go into depth. We're showing you the skills, and we're giving you some time for hands-on experience, because all of our classes are hands-on, but we need to move on because we have to cover all these topics in just a few days. In the week-long class, we can go more in depth in all the topics. We're giving you much more time for hands-on experience, and we're covering more topics. For example, in the weekend class, we can't do navigation with and without a compass or nighttime navigation. That's real good to know, but not essential for staying alive, so that has to be jettisoned. We do plans in the weekend class, but it's probably about a half hour, where in the week class we devote a half a day to plans. So it's kind of like going to Disney World. If you will go down to Florida, I haven't been there, but I understand you can do Disney World in a day, or you can also take 3 days and do Disney World. It's up to you. If you do it in a day, you can probably get through all the attractions, but you're not going to see it the same way as if you take it or go down there for 3 days. So we also are going to have homesteading classes. Those are up in March. The next one's coming up in March if you're interested in wine making, cheese making, soap making. And this year we started some new classes last year, like moonshine making, and we're going to be expanding those this year. So we're going to be having those. That's a long answer to your question. Yes, our 2021 classes are up, and we're going to be even adding some more of those pretty shortly.
Okay, so we've got some more people.
Oh, great.
Brady, Renee.
Brady.
Anisia's back.
Renee.
Paul. So yeah, we've got some more on the line.
Thank you for joining us. That makes these discussions fun because most of my lives I'm here and I'm talking about a topic, and I try to make it interesting, and I pick topics I think you like, but this format's better because I can answer any questions that you might have, and if you stump me, I'll be the first one to say I don't know, because believe me, don't know everything, but I'll probably find out the answer. I know there's a lag for when you type the questions. It's about a 15-second lag. So if you're typing questions, that's where I might be slowing down a little bit or dragging my feet. I'm waiting for you to type the question, have it come through cyberspace and to us here.
And Wendy has posted links to your weekend and week classes.
Oh, great. Thank you, Wendy. Wendy's doing a fantastic job. Wendy's a great friend of mine, and she's the one that really started me doing these Facebook Lives. And between Wendy doing all the background work here and getting everything moving and making these nice things on Facebook, and Cheryl helping out with the photography and fielding of all the calls in the back. And Cheryl also has a new job now. All these Facebook Lives we've been doing, we're transferring it to our YouTube channel. We do have a YouTube channel. We've had it for a while. But we're adding some extras to these. So rather than just have what you're seeing here on Facebook Live, Cheryl's adding indexing. She's adding a lot of extras to these excerpts, and she's kind of tightening them up a little bit. So if you miss something, so like say our in-depth dive into knives, or you have a friend that you watched it and you said, hey, this would really be good, you might be interested in watching Tom talk about knives, they can go to YouTube and then you just search for Midwest Native Skills Institute. Then you simply go, we'll be probably right at the top, but we have our logo there with the green in the center. Click there, and you'll see all of our Facebook Lives. So, thanks to Cheryl for doing all the work she's doing and putting these together. These 45-minute segments take her about 4 or 5 hours to get on our YouTube channel, so that's a lot of her time. So, anything else before I go to some of these other questions I have here? Yeah, our weekend survival class, May 21st, 23rd, July 13th. Yeah, edible plant classes. Like I said, we have 3. May 15th, July 17th is the summer, and September 11th.
I do have a question for you.
What you got?
Sam would like to know any experience or opinions on the Grayl water filters. Seems to be the latest craze.
We've had the Grayl in stock for about 1.5 years now, Sam. I really like the Grayl. For those of you, Cheryl, could you do me a favor?
Is it over here?
We just happen to have, where we usually do our Facebook Lives by our fireplace, I have some of the water filters there, and it's the orange one. They come in 2 colors, orange and smoke. That's the one. So Sam, everyone's going to think that we set this up beforehand. Here's what Sam's referring to. This is the Grayl water filter. Now, you're going to carry a water filter anyway. The way this one works is you pull this apart, and here is your filtering mechanism down here. This bottom part, this comes off, it's on there tight, is replaceable. And this is where your dirty water would go. So you would take this, you'd scoop up your dirty water, put this on, and now you're all familiar with pumps where you have to pump them. Well, this takes that pumping away. All you do is put this on the ground, and you, with your body weight, you just lean on this and push this down right here. As you're pushing it down, that's forcing the water through that filter you saw at the bottom into this inside cavity here. And so the inside cavity is now filled with perfectly pure water you can instantaneously drink. So this is your water carrier and your water filter. So if you wanted more water than just this, if you had another container, you do this, pour it into your container, filled with dirty water, and just keep repeating this. The big benefit is you don't have to pump, and even if you don't have a lot of arm strength, you can just use your body weight to force it through. I like the Grayl. It's a good filter. There are 2 filters people are really using now. One is the Sawyer. It's a smaller filter. The only, I don't want to say downside, but the only thing Sawyer does not do is viruses and bacteria. And the Grayl does do viruses and bacteria. And 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be having our Facebook Live on water purifiers. So we're going to talk about, well, are viruses and bacteria a big deal? Should I, shouldn't I? And so we're going to talk about that in 2 weeks. But I like the Grayl. We have them in stock. They're a big seller. Like I said, the small Sawyer one is also a good filter. If you had a bladder, something on your back, you can put the Sawyer in line, and just when you're sucking the water, it's going to go through the filter. So if you're carrying a water bottle, you might want to think about the Grayl. If you have a hydration pack, you might want to consider the Sawyer. And if you're not worried about viruses and bacteria in the water you're drinking. And again, we can go into that next time around. So, Grayl, good purchase.
Yeah, Nicia says it's super cool. She wished she had saw it before she bought everyone life straws for Christmas.
Yeah. Don't beat yourself up too bad on the life straw. Life straws aren't bad. They were the best at the time. And so we all make the best decisions with what we have available, with the information. Life straws are great for a backup, an emergency backup. And for those of you that have taken our classes, we have our saying, 1 is none, 2 is 1. And it's a military saying. It's been through a lot of survival schools, I know. And basically what it means, if you only have one way of doing something, it's like having none, because that one way can easily break, malfunction, lose it, whatever. So if you have 2 ways of doing it, that's smarter. And we advocate that at the school. You always have a backup. So you have 2 ways to make fire, and 2 different ways. So if you were going to carry a water filter, don't carry 2 Grayls. Carry a Grayl, and then carry something else, like a life straw, or like a Sawyer, or like bleach, or like something else. So you have 2 ways to purify water. So those life straws weren't a bad idea. If you tune in, whatever the date's going to be, to Thursdays from now, you might get a whole bunch of other ideas on what water purifiers you might want to think about. So, yeah, Grayl's pretty cool. But water's important. So, in your priorities, you have to think, what's really going to keep me alive? What do I have to worry about? So water should be your number one thing. So, water and shelter. So, what else do we have, Cheryl? Anybody have any crazy questions? Stump the survival guy? Cheryl, when you said Rob's out there, is that the Rob we know? Rob Dotson? Rob would probably ask me a question that I'd know the answer to, like what's the best high-performance car there is? And we all know that answer is Pontiac. Let's see. Oh, had a question here. Did I ever have an encounter with a wild animal? I've been getting that question quite a bit. Usually in the woods, animals aren't going to bother you. On all of our main winter trips, I've personally never had an encounter with any wild animal. When we go on our main winter trips up to northern Maine, we never take any weapons, any guns, any rifles. No need to. The only time I ever encountered a situation, I took my motorcycle from Cleveland up to Alaska, and when I called the Canadian authorities up there, just to get some more information before I did this, they suggested that I take a weapon with me because I was going to camp out along the way. And the further north you get, they said it just would be a smart thing to do. So I took my a rifle with me, which they recommended taking a shotgun, but I took a 30-30 rifle with me, which really, if it was any kind of large animal, like a bear, wouldn't do anything to it. But I made a scabbard for it, more for nostalgia reasons, and took it up there. And I was camping outside in this field, and there were there were 3 wolves in the corner of the field. And I saw them coming in, and there was the alpha, the head 1 and 2 behind it. We were just sniffing the ground a little bit, and they were kind of coming toward me. They looked real cute and pretty, and they kept coming toward me, and I was cooking my dinner, and kept walking toward me, and kind of not looking at me, but they were making a beeline for me. And they got within, I would say, 100 yards, then they got within 50 yards. So I grabbed my rifle, just in case, and they kept coming, and they got within about 40 yards. I chambered around, and that first alpha wolf looked up, his ears went up, looked right at me. Then he looked down like, he didn't bother me, and then they started to make a curve. He started to curve, and the other 2 just kind of curved and went along their way and then back into the woods. So either he heard that or it was a coincidence, but that was my only encounter. Didn't have to fire a shot or anything. So it was nothing exciting or macho about it, but that was my only encounter in 30-some plus years in the wilderness with animals. They don't want to bother you, as long as you don't want to bother them. Another animal question I had. In some of our classes, we teach escape evasion, how to walk through the woods without making noise, how to move around silently. And there's a way to walk that the natives do. It's called a fox walk. It's you can walk on basically dry leaves and not make noise. You can get very close to animals, if not touch an animal like a deer. And the question was, how close did I ever get to a deer? Because some of the natives claim that they have actually touched wild deer. Not deer in the city, because heck, probably we all could touch a deer in our backyard these days, but touch a deer in the woods because you can actually sneak up on it. Well, the closest I ever got to a deer was about 4 feet. When you're doing this, there's two parts of it. It's how you walk to not make noise. But more important than that, it's how you use your eyes. There's two kinds of looking a person does. You have tunnel vision when you're staring at something, and you have something called wide angle vision, where your eyes are relaxed, and you're using your peripheral vision. So you can see everything around you, but you can see what's to the right and left of you. When you're using tunnel vision, that's when people can feel you staring at them. And I'm sure we all felt somebody stare at you. And it's hard to explain how you can feel it, but you still feel it. They're in tunnel vision. They're staring at you. You feel this creepy feeling like somebody's staring at me. If you're in wide angle vision, you don't get that creepy feeling. It masks your humanness. So what we teach is this wide angle vision and this fox walk. So if you're walking up to a deer, if you're in wide angle vision, the deer doesn't feel that creepy feeling like this human's staring at me or coming up to me. And the fox walk is making you walk extremely silently. So to answer the question, the closest I got was about 4 foot to a deer, and this was about 5-6 years ago. And when I got within about 4 foot of the deer, I was really excited. And I could feel myself starting to slip into that tunnel vision where you're honing in, and I couldn't stop it. So I could just feel it like snapped into tunnel vision, and I said to myself, shit. And I couldn't get out of it. It was a mental thing. And it took about a second and a half, and that deer swung his head, looked at me, stood there for, I don't know, maybe half a second, and that's the only time I saw a deer jump completely sideways away from me and then took off. So to answer the question, for about 4 feet. And I screwed up. But you can do it on your dog, you can do it on rabbits and stuff, this fox walk. It's fun to do. But so that's my getting close to an animal story and my wolf story. Let's see, what else here? I'm glad all you guys joined me. I appreciate it. Oh, would you like some of your opinions? This summer, I'm thinking about having a camp out for people that have taken classes before, and not just the survival classes. I just, a plant class, any type of class, maybe a weekend. I know a lot of schools are having gatherings, they call them, and things like that. But just find a place, probably just maybe at this place where I have some of my classes here, just south of Cleveland, or maybe there's a place someplace mid-Ohio. I'm open for suggestions. A weekend, camp out, even bring, a significant other or part of your family, and just to share skills, kind of get together, get away, talk survival to people. I'm sure I'll come up with some kind of program or something a little bit in the evenings. But the purpose is not a class. There won't be any cost to it, but just kind of a get together. And just wondered some of your thoughts on it, and even some of your thoughts on what activities for the weekend you might like to see during a weekend like this. And I'm just thinking of something fun to do this summer, because I'm hoping COVID is going to kind of be on the downswing. It won't be quite as crazy as it was last year. Like I said, next time we're going to do water purification. I'm going to talk about natural water purification. And first I'm going to start out with what are we so afraid of that's in the water that's going to get us sick, and what does getting sick mean, and all that. So talk about that a bit, and then talk about how we can prevent ourselves from getting sick if you don't have a water purifier, and then what water purifier you might want to look at. There's a lot of myths about how long you boil it and all that too, so we can talk about that.
Wendy wants to know about, what about a backyard plant survey?
Backyard plant survey. Wendy and I did talk about that. I think that would be a fun thing to do in the spring. We were thinking for one of these Facebook Lives, we would have you go out in your backyard, and we would give you some ideas on what plants are in your backyard now, and you could go find them, and we would have kind of an open discussion on what you found in your backyard. And I'd have some plants here, and maybe we have Sam. He went out and he found some wood sorrel in his backyard, and explain it, and then we could say, yeah, did anybody else find wood sorrel? Well, did you know you can use wood sorrel if you're seeing on your hike and you're getting a little tired? You could use it to give yourself a little energy boost. You could put it on your fish if you're out fishing and you fillet a fish. You want to impart a lemon taste on your fish. You could put it on top there. Maybe Wendy says, well, I found red clover, and I'll say, well, Wendy, did you know if you make a tea out of the red clover, it's a good blood purifier? And we could just go on and on and on and on. So spring would be a good time to do that, and then maybe we could do one in the summer and another one in the fall. And just my purpose is to get people on the other side of this camera out in their backyard, and maybe with their significant other, maybe with their neighbor, maybe with their kids, and just to start looking and seeing what's out there and get more involved.
Okay, so Sam wants to know, how extensive of a kit would you carry for a day hike? He hates to carry too much extra gear, but he had a friend who just went out on a quick day hike on a backpack trail about 2 weeks ago in Ohio. Mm-hmm. He fell and broke his kneecap and then had to spend a very miserable night in the woods with nothing. He didn't even have a coat since it was warm when he started out. So
Ouch.
How extensive a kit would you carry on a day hike?
Okay. Whenever I go in the woods, the first thing I carry is my right angle survival tool. It's on the website. It's a kit I designed 20-some years ago. It's a small kit, Sam. It's maybe about this tall, this big. It clips on your belt. And that thing is jam-packed with a lot of stuff, starting with a knife sharpener, whistles, fishing gear, navigation. And that's about 10% of what's in this little kit. And it's all high-quality stuff because that's what you need. Whenever I go in the woods, if we go in one of my classes and we're going to do a little hike, I had it when we went on our plant walk. It's always on my hip. It's black. That's my survival kit. It doesn't have everything. It wouldn't have helped your friend that much, except a whistle might have. But that's my basic. Now, if I'm going on a day hike like that, okay, let's go a little more extensive. How many people are around? If I would hurt myself, would there be people around where I could get help? Obviously, where your friend went, there weren't that many people around, and he had that issue. I'd carry something like that. Like I said, I just personally dislike backpacks. That's just me. I would get a hunter's fanny pack. I could handle a fanny pack, and in there, what you're going to be having are your basics. Your shelter, fire, water, food. Your basics. Signaling would be, again, if you're signaling at night, you're going to want a fire with smoke. So you're going to have fire starters in that pack. And during the day, you're going to have at least a 110 decibel whistle in there. You're also going to have, like, without the coat, I have on the website, I found these Mylar bivy bags, if you call them. I'm sure you're familiar with these Mylar sleeping, or Mylar blankets they have. They're real thin ones. They're real cheap. They cost like $3-4. Well, they made them better. They made a actual, like a sleeping bag made out of that Mylar. they're not made to last more than 2 or 3 uses. But if your friend would have had that, he could have crawled in that Mylar bag, sleeping bag, and it's full sleeping bag length. So it would have reflected all of his body heat back on. He would have been warm that night. Now, that would be the minimum I would carry in the fanny pack, again, for shelter. I'd also, if it would have rained, I would have had some type of plastic to make some kind of makeshift lean-to tarp. I would, you could do just a piece of the drop cloth plastic is better than nothing. Personally, I'd go with a silicone nylon, which is going to be probably $60, $70 if you have that kind of money, but it's going to last me my lifetime. So anytime I go out on that hike, I'm going to have a good high quality piece of gear. So it depends how much money you want to spend, and that's up to you. But even if it's just a drop cloth you get at Walmart is better than nothing. To play it safe, some people would say, well, you should have a backpack with your sleeping bag and this, and maybe a satellite radio. And sure you can, but that's not practical. And I'm not going to carry it. It's too heavy. It's too bulky. It would ruin my trip. So I always have my little right angle survival tool on me for the basics, but on a trip like your friend was, it would be a little fanny pack with gear. Again, some power bars and stuff in there. Even though you go 3 weeks without food, he needs his spirits up. And I'd have some medical in there. What kind of medical? Aspirin.
So Melissa and Dan have joined us, and Melissa has
Melissa,
a question. She's new to us.
Oh, great.
So she'd like to know how you got the Institute started.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, real briefly, I'll give you the condensed version. When I was in college, I read a book on Simon Kenton, Daniel Boone, and I was just amazed how those guys could go out in the woods for months with just a little bit of gear and survive. And whenever I envy somebody about their skills, if it's possible, I say, if they could do it, I could do it. I want to learn that. And I didn't know anybody that knew how to even carve a simple snare trap or anything like that. So I was an engineer for a utility company here. At the time I was making good money. I had vacation time. So I went around the country learning from various teachers on skills. And I knew the Native Americans knew these skills pretty well. And I knew there was a reservation in Cherokee, North Carolina. Called down there. Talked to their cultural center, and the person wasn't very interested in talking with me, and finally got talking a little more, and I said I wanted to learn the old ways. So long story short, got involved with them, learned that the Cherokee were very good at fire making and tracking. And I know there's a gentleman, Charles Worsham, down there, excellent tracker. Took classes with Charles down there. And he had some friends said, you might want to contact a guy I know up in Maine named Ray Wrightsey. He learned from the Micmac. He's real good winter camping. Okay. Well, I got hooked up with Ray, and one thing led to another. And I did that for about 10 years. And I was coming home. I loved the skills. And in 97, I was laid off when First Energy bought our utility company up here, looking for a job. And I'm sure, like everybody listening here, you have to put up with all the corporate BS and the backstabbing and the game playing of your job. I was tired of it, but we all have to work. So I came home, and Cheryl, I was going to get a job with GE, but Cheryl said, you don't really want this job? She said, why don't you try starting your own school? You've been talking about it. I didn't know anything about it, but sure, if she was going to back me, I said I tried. So got incorporated, didn't know much about running a school, but did this, got a website up. A friend of mine said, I always want to make a video. There's no good fire making videos out there. We made a fire video, and it turned out to be good. He said, let's make another one, 40 ways to make fire without matches. We made that, real good video. And then I was sitting home watching TV, 7:30 one night, and the phone rings. Answer it. It was, what was that, Discovery or Modern Marvels, Cheryl?
Modern Marvels, I think.
Modern Marvels? Modern Marvels, I think it was. They were doing a show on fire making. He said, "Hi, this is blah, 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 director of whatever. Can we use some of your footage from your video because you've documented some ways of making fire on video that was only written in books. We never had footage of people doing it." And I said, sure, just give us credit. And they did, and then all of a sudden the school took off. And after that, I always said keep classes small, and basically it's hard to advertise, and that's still my Achilles heel. How do you advertise to people? But it's my students. So I keep classes small. I really care that the people that come to the school learn the skills. And the reason I keep teaching is the look on people's faces. I don't care if you're a cardiologist, if you're a plumber, if you're a school teacher, if you're a multimillionaire, who you are. You get the same look, the same excitement when you get that first bow drill fire. When you realize your first figure 4 trap stands up. That you can do it. And that's what keeps me teaching. It's really cool. So that's the shortest version of that story I can give you, but that's how I got started. But thank you for asking. So, what time is it? 1:15. That's when I usually cut off. Thanks for staying with me, those of you that stuck it out. Like I said, in 2 weeks, we're going to be doing water purification. And I hope you can join me again. If you have any other questions or comments, especially about the gathering I want to have, for lack of a better term of it, sometime this summer, what you would like to see in it, just email me, Tom@Survival School. And I hope to see you here in 2 weeks and with some of your questions on water purification. Thanks a lot, and stay warm. It's still wintertime.